We will now call to order the August 28th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. The Nebraska Open Meetings Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is available on the board clerk table. Sheila, can we get roll call, please?
Joanne Lundgren.
Present.
Emily Garrett.
Present.
Cindy O'Connor. Skip Altig.
Present.
Angela Blasey.
Present.
Justin Thompson.
Present.
I would entertain a motion at this time to excuse Cindy O'Connor.
I'll make a motion to excuse Cindy.
Second.
Skip Altig.
Aye.
Angela Blasey.
Aye.
Justin Thompson.
Aye.
Joanne Lundgren.
Aye.
Motion passes. I will read our mission statement just because I really love reading it every time we meet. North Platte Public Schools is a destination school district and community that embraces innovative opportunities and distinguished programs to create highly competitive advantages for all students, instilling the canteen spirit in an evolving world. The canteen spirit embodies generosity, selflessness, and unwavering support through service, pride, collaboration, and grit. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the August 28th, 2025 Committee of the Whole publication.
I'll make a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole publication for August 28th.
Roll call, Sheila? Or do I have a second? Sorry.
Second.
Roll call, Sheila?
Skip Altig.
Aye.
Angela Blasey.
Aye.
Justin Thompson.
Aye.
Joanne Lundgren.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Aye. Motion passes. At this time, I am going to make a quick announcement before we approve our agenda. I am going to switch the order of two things on our agenda just for sake of flow of conversation tonight. So we will do our 4,000 policy review prior to our budget discussion. That way our budget discussion can just roll right into that action item since they are related. So we will be changing the order. There is no change to the agenda. I would entertain a motion at this time to approve the agenda of the August 28th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for the August 28th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Skip Altig.
Aye.
Angela Blasey.
Aye.
Justin Thompson.
Aye.
Joanne Lundgren.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Aye. All right, please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will start our evening off with our board engagement. So at this time, if anybody has gone on any school visits, trainings, anything like that you would like to share with the whole board, here's your chance.
I did attend my NASB legislative committee meeting on August 7th and 8th. That's why I wasn't here for the meeting on the 7th. Basically, we talked about some of the bills that are probably going to come back that were either not voted out of committee or were out of committee but didn't get to the floor. They will have to be reintroduced, however, so they'll probably have new numbers. Which ones they're going to be depends on the senators. We also talked about the, I have to get the name. The School Finance Commission that was created, that's actually has met, what, once or? Once. And the people that the governor appointed to those committees, there are school board members on it. There are also superintendents on it. Former state senators, current state senators, and they are going to try and figure out, if they can, something to do with TIOSA, what we can do with that. So we spent a lot of time talking about that. We will meet again in November on the 19th. That's that Wednesday state conference. We always meet in the morning of that day, and then we will have, Colby will have a lot better idea on what new bills might be coming, and we may get some of that next Wednesday for the area meeting, because I know he has a section where he's going to be talking. So a lot of discussion more about the commission than anything in our meeting.
session with the attorneys before the opening of schools with the administrators. I thought that was really interesting and informative. They talked a lot. They shared with us that evening, I think, a lot of the same things that were shared during the opening of schools, which I also was not able to attend because I had to go attend to a family member. It was interesting to hear some of the things that the attorneys are concerned about with the marijuana bill and with some of the other bills that have been passed with that we need to accommodate students and those kinds of things. So, and then Angela and I were able to go to Jefferson Elementary, and we went to it was their leadership meeting with the fifth graders, and it was really fun. I have a copy of the flyer, and she talked to them about being a Jaguar intern, so they would have opportunities to take pictures or write stories. Maybe do the announcements some mornings for Dr. Eshelman. Instead of a student council this year, they're going to have a fifth grade leadership team. And then they were going to select some backpack helpers to help deliver the backpacks on Fridays, an open house greeter to help show students and parents around, and then she talked to them just about being a Jaguar supporter, which means that you're just a good kid everywhere you go because you represent the school everywhere you go. And then they also had a little scavenger hunt that the fifth graders went on, and that was a lot of fun. She fed them pizza. Probably my favorite part about all of that, other than the leadership portion of it, is I was there before any of the kids got there, and that first day of school excitement, even though it wasn't the first day of school, they see their friends and they're like, hi! just a lot of energy and fun, and so that was really neat to be there to see those kids looking forward to seeing their schoolmates and going back to school. So.
Thank you for sharing. I attended the new teachers welcome that Tuesday morning prior to the opening of schools, and that's always, I really enjoy getting to go to that and see the new faces, and it's always great to see the faces that have a tie to North Platte, whether it's family member, they grew up here and they're moving back, or those kinds of things. So that was really exciting to see a lot of depth in those that are coming back to the North Platte area. And then similarly, the training with KSB, I found that to be really just valuable information. I think it's information that probably a lot of us on the school board or administrators maybe already technically know, but just being reminded of the importance of it and kind of feeling a little bit empowered maybe in the right avenues to report something if you have concerns, or just the different ways to handle that. So I thought that was really great. And then of course the back to school welcome is always exciting to see everybody come in their color coordinated t-shirts and all the excitement and enthusiasm to come back to school. And I will say, I really felt like this year there was just a very positive energy in coming back to school. And that's saying something when you're saying goodbye to summer break. So that was really great to see, and I think we're all excited about the school year. So.
Yeah, I got to go to all those things. And then one thing I appreciated with the KSB thing was that our local county attorney was there. It was really nice to get her kind of feedback on stuff. We work with her. I mean, I don't, but the district works with her so much that it's kind of nice to have her in our building talking with us about what's going on. I love that Dr. E is doing this leadership thing with the fifth graders. A couple of them happen to be family of mine, and so when she walked out of that, she was like, I am a leader now. And it's like, that's right, don't forget it. So those fifth graders really take that responsibility on, and I love that. Let's see, what was the other thing? Oh, I got to go into the 4 schools in my ward on the first day of school. I just popped in because I just took the principals a little something, but it was very nice to see everything going on, and everything seemed great. There wasn't anybody rushing around and running and screaming with their heads cut off, so that was good. And then today we had the cross-country meet, the home cross-country meet in Sutherland, so that was great, and our teams took home some medals, so it was fantastic.
I had one thing that I forgot to mention. I have a student at the high school, and she has reported very positive things about the no phone policy. So that was exciting to hear that there's a lot of students. She said some of the classrooms are a little bit louder sometimes, but that's okay because that means that kids are actually talking to each other, and she's even noticed kids at lunch that normally just sit by themselves and are on their phones that are actually interacting with some of the other students. So it was nice to hear a positive report from a student.
It's great to hear. Anyone else? All right. We will move on to our public comment time for the evening. Public questions and comments may take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a guidelines for public comments form with the date, topic addressing, name, address, and the name of any organization you represent, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting. Sheila, do we have?
I have 2.
Okay, I will continue reading my paragraph here then. When called upon by the presiding officer, the individual shall proceed to, we don't have a table, but we'll just ask you to come up front so the board can see you. Proceed to the front, state your name and your address. You may not exceed 5 minutes, and the total time for all individuals who want to speak shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority vote of the board approves extending the allocated time. This time for public comment shall not be used to address specific individual, student discipline, or employee performance issues. Complaint and grievance processes are in place to deal with issues of this nature. And I do always just want to try to make mention that the board is listening to you. We cannot always engage with you in back and forth simply because we have to adhere to our published agenda. But I will be sure to follow up if there is something that the board needs to follow up with somebody after speaking tonight. Okay.
First, I have Kenzie Mullen.
Good evening. I am Kinsey Mullern. My address is 4014 Sequoia Drive, and I am speaking tonight on behalf of the members of the North Platte Education Association as their president in regards to Board Policy 4041, Staff Dress and Appearance. As a school district, we believe that North Platte Public Schools is a destination school district and community that embraces innovative opportunities and distinguished programs to create highly competitive advantages for all students, instilling the canteen spirit in an evolving world. The canteen spirit embodies generosity, selflessness, and unwavering support through service, pride, collaboration, and grit. To make these words a reality, we need staff who are invested in our school district and community and dedicated to supporting all of our students. As the district seeks to hire and retain high-quality staff members, improving the morale of staff is one way to achieve this goal. The current dress code is making a positive difference in morale and the teaching environment. NPA is in support of maintaining our current dress code for staff as smart casual. In the spring of 2024, we completed a survey of our certified members in regards to this policy. We shared these results with you, but I'm just going to give a brief summary here. 100% of our members said that changing the dress code to smart casual, including the ability to wear jeans, was a positive change. Nobody disagreed with that statement. We asked a similar question in 2004 prior to the change, and we had 92.6% of people said that changing the dress code would make a change. That's a big change for us. That's almost an 8% growth there. 97% of the members indicated that changing the dress code to smart casual has improved the teaching environment and morale. We had 13.8% 13.8% of our members indicate that they didn't believe changing the dress code would make a difference. Again, that's about a 10% increase from the one school year to the next school year. One certified member stated, the dress code policy improves morale, and it costs the district nothing to do this. This is one perk we get. Please don't do away with this. As educators, we have to figure out how to motivate our students to make our classrooms a place where students want to learn and are able to learn. As a school board, we have a similar role as teachers. Our members have clearly said wearing jeans is something that motivates us. In addition to being no cost to the district, it has helped educators connect with students. Another certified member highlighted the fact that the dress code being changed has made it easier for me to meet my students where they are most needed. I learned this personally in my adventure in pre-K1 last year. I had to get really low to get down to meet those kids. Being able to dress more casually, being able to wear my jeans, I could get down on the ground with them. If I was playing blocks, if I was playing trains, whatever I was doing for the day. My husband often asked me what I did, and he kind of laughed at me, but that's what I did to connect with those kids. I was able to do that because of the dress I was wearing at that time. And I made those connections, so I was more able to help those students learn because they were able to trust me more and make that connection with me. Another certified member stated, as teachers, we are not supposed to punish our whole class for the actions of others, so don't let it be that way for staff. If someone is not wearing the right clothes or jeans, then it should be addressed to that individual person and not punish everyone. You can ask any educator, which we have a great showing of Washington people here tonight, and when that has happened in their classroom. Most people have followed the rules, and if you haven't, and you're probably going to get more than one example, you might want to sit down because you're probably going to be sitting there for a while, because they all have a lot to share. In closing, NPA is in support of maintaining our current dress code for staff as smart casual. In the words of another certified member who eloquently said what we have heard in conversations as a leadership team with staff members regarding this policy, it's nice to know that we are supported and trusted to be professional in our career. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of NPA and for what you do for our districts.
Then we have Shreya Agrawal.
Hi, my name is Shreya Agrawal and I live on 380 East Sagebrush Drive in North Platte. I'm speaking today as a parent whose kids attend North Platte Public Schools. I want to thank the administration and the school staff for an amazing start of the school year. The first few weeks of school have been very positive for my kids, and it has been nice to see all students get back to a routine of learning. I also want to express deep appreciation for all that the district does to support the whole child. The past few months have been very stressful with federal funding cuts, making it difficult to know which programs will remain and which will need to be cut. Many parents I know rely on free and reduced lunch, additional services for learning disabilities for their children, and after-school care. And I know it took a lot of background work from so many different people to get us here so that the district can continue to offer these services, and I'm really grateful for that. This is also the start of a 5-year strategic plan that the district rolled out last year. I'm excited to see what the district has planned for this first year and how they're going to communicate that to parents and to families. 5 years is a long time to be making a positive impact on our students, but it starts with small steps that we have to take every single year. Finally, for the board of directors, I appreciate all the time that you give serving on this board and for your expertise that you bring to this role. Something that I would urge you to consider when you look at the makeup of the board, of any single board, having an even number of board members can lead to stalemates and unproductive discussions that don't always lead to well thought out decisions. Currently, we have 2 board members representing each board that they live in. However, when there are 10 consecutive ties, a flip of a coin leads to the ultimate decision, and that's happened more and more in the recent history. A flip of a coin should not be the decider for some of the most challenging and important decisions that are made by this group. I would urge you to consider making an at-large position similar to other educational institutions in this town and adding a 7th board member. According to Nebraska Revised Statute 79550, this can only be done with the recommendation of the board, and it has to be done during an odd calendar year, so the new board member can be elected at the next statewide general election, which would be November 2026. I think it can be a very positive decision for our school district if we decide as a community that we should have an odd number of board members representing us. This will ensure that every decision is made through the expertise and dialogue of voting members instead of the flip of a coin. As we start this school year, please always ask yourself, what can you do to support our teachers and administration, and what can you do to enhance the learning opportunities for our students? Please continue to work in a productive manner with the district and Dr. Rhodes to live the canteen spirit, which we've talked about a lot today already, and to focus on the impact that every discussion and decision that you have here has on the students that attend North Platte Public School. Thank you for your time and for letting me share my thoughts.
Thank you, Shreya.
If we have Dr. Rhodes look into the at-large board member, do we need to, we just need to ask him to do that? Just, okay.
I think we can talk about that at our executive and bring it to the board. Shreya, I reserve the right to follow up with you if the board has questions or comments on that. I don't.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we will move on to our regular agenda for this evening. So we're going to start off that portion of the evening with our Washington Elementary presentation. So we're going to welcome Mrs. Gale and her staff.
Can you get off
Yeah, I think so.
with my Bessie? No, I got off. That's what I did.
Get your Wi-Fi.
No, I took it off. So I don't know how to get out of there so you can
Go
get
to
in
those two
there.
little squares to the right.
Please.
They're highlighted.
See the two that are different colors.
They're highlighted. Yep, there you go. Click on that.
Who are you talking to, me or her?
You.
I'm sorry. There we go.
There you go.
It was just slow. He was just thinking.
Geez, that's a lot of work. Well, welcome to Washington. I'm excited to be able to present this to you. We worked really hard on our site plan, and so being able to share that information with you tonight is exciting for all of us. So thank you to all my Washington staff for coming here to support me while I'm up here. We'll start with introductions, and then we'll look at the specific building goals. So at Washington, we have several of our Guided Coalition members here. So as I say your name, please stand up. So I have Mr. Ferguson. Mitch Ferguson is a kindergarten teacher. I have Peyton Schultz. She's our 5th grade teacher. Myself, I'm Alexa Blackburn. She is our resource teacher. We have Kelly Beveridge. Ms. Beveridge is our facilitator. And Victoria Simmons is school counselor. And then I have Sally Becker on the team, and Mrs. Becker is our gym teacher. So in addition to that, though, I see several other faces out there representing all departments, so thanks for being here. So our goal last year for our site plan for NSCAS is based on the prior year data. And so our goal for 24-25 was 60% of our students would score at proficiency level or higher in math. And then we were aiming for 65% of our students being proficient in ELA, 70% being proficient in science. And that data is not available yet to release, but we're looking pretty good. The way that we wanted to attain that goal through the action steps that we implemented, most of our energy was spent around the organization of our IE time. So the organization of our intervention and enrichment time is student-centered, skill-based, and consistent with collaboration between grade-alike teachers. We are utilizing the table of specs to prioritize the essential standards, and we are also reinforcing student growth and proficiency levels on NSCAS. So those are steps we took last year. Our building goal comes from our external review from a couple years ago, and the suggestion was to fine-tune our MTSS process to better implement intervention and enrichment. And so our goal is based around our DIBELS. So by the end of the 24-25 school year, the goal was 60% proficiency. As you can see in the black, we did meet our goal. So 72% of our students actually did score at or above proficiency level. The way that that was made possible is that we really do spend time collecting data, progress monitoring, and collaborating around the data. We look at our formative and summative assessment data frequently, and then once again, that intervention and enrichment time. We spend a lot of time making sure all students are being met where their needs are at. So all students, not just high-risk students. And we do that through our MTSS and data digs. So today, for example, we had our very first data dig of the year. So we had meetings all day looking at preliminary data. Our behavior goal last year, based on the data from the year prior, was to decrease the major behaviors in the building. So we had 73% of our behaviors from the year prior were considered major. So that's a lot of office visits. So we wanted to decrease that by 20%. And we did that. We made it. 46% of our incidents were majors. It took a lot of time and a lot of work, but we focused on Boys Town, just explicitly teaching those strategies to the kids. We implemented something called a regulation station. I have a picture of that I'll show you. And then we updated our flow chart just to better identify what a major and a minor behavior is. And then working on de-escalation, because a lot of times that's what it is, just needing to give the students time. So this is an example of what a regulation station looks like. This idea came from our guided coalition meetings, and just this was a way that we solved the problem. It gives the students an opportunity to calm down within a classroom setting before we send them out of the room. So every classroom has this set up in their classrooms. There's a 2-minute timer, there's a bucket. It can be teacher decision, it can be student decision. That's what that looks like. Our attendance goal last year was to have a school-wide overall attendance of 96%. We were at 95 the year before. It doesn't seem like a huge ordeal, but it is. And we did make it. We had 96.3% overall. And so you can see the grade levels over here. Everybody made the goal. We did a lot of celebrating attendance. We do shout outs over the intercom. We have monthly awards. We have grade level shout outs on social media. A big one that we worked on is called the Level Up Award. We took the data from the year prior, and anybody that was chronically absent, their name was put on a spreadsheet. We watched all year long their attendance, and if they were looking to improve their personal attendance, then they got a Level Up Award quarterly. So that was pretty exciting, and the parents responded well to that. So it's interesting to talk about last year because we're already so focused on this year now. So that was celebrations from last year. We have a lot of the data from last year, and we're already building goals for this year. So looking ahead, these are some of the goals that we're working towards. So in NSCAS, we are going back to the MAPS Pro, so we're going to focus on getting better at that to improve our NSCAS. And then within our building, we'll continue working towards the intervention and enrichment time. And so we are just starting off the year with grade alike collaboration. So today when we met, we looked at grade alike data. We didn't separate it by classrooms. And then for behavior, physical aggression was our #1 behavior. And so we're hoping that by implementing some rest time in the kindergarten and first grade schedule, we can help eliminate that. Also, we are embedding mindful moments every day, and that might be just a 5-minute time for kids to breathe, or it might be 5 minutes of quiet time. Just every day is a little bit different. And then on our attendance, we're going to continue that Level Up Award, but this year we're really focusing on our chronic absenteeism. Any questions?
I don't have questions, but I visited your school in the spring, and I remember seeing some of the kiddos at the regulation stations, and I just remember at the time how I thought that was a great idea. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how your your mindful moments and rest breaks and those things work out. And I also still remember your data wall. And I thought that was something that was really neat too. And I loved how you could see the kids' pictures and then there were some color coding things just to know exactly where they were at. And it was just really nice, I think, to have that available to the people who needed it and to be able to, immediately put the face with maybe the need and everybody knows, those kiddos that need the extra help and can give them support, whether or not they're in their classroom or, if they just see them in the building or those kinds of things. So I think you guys are doing some really great things.
Do we have any other buildings that are implementing a rest time with kindergarten or first grade?
I'm not sure on that.
I've not heard anybody say that before. I would be curious to know what impacts you see this school year from
last year
that.
was in there as a transition period is what it's called, and this year we're just really focusing on it. We're not doing calendar, we're just coming in, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I think
love it.
that's, I would be really curious to hear an update on how that goes, because I have long been a believer that our expectations of full-day school for 5 and 6-year-olds are pretty high, and they just get very tired. So I think that that's a very simple but creative solution to see if that helps with that. So I appreciate you guys doing that.
Well, I mean, one thing for me, because I do teach kindergarten, obviously. Last year it was kind of written in, it was more of a block idea, so you had your options. I mean, so it was fine. I implemented it into my classroom. The teacher last year went a different direction, and not saying that there was any big differences, but for me, I mean, when you do have like a 5 and 6-year-old, especially after half a day, so they've done 3 core curriculums in the morning, and then they've eaten lunch, and then they've had recess. I mean, they need time to unwind too. So, but now it's written in on our district schedule for us. I think that's been very good. So,
We were given autonomy this year, building our schedules, so that's what allowed us to do that. So.
but it's been good. So,
Anybody else?
Love it. Thank you.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations on not only meeting those goals, but like
Exceeding.
blowing them out of the water in some cases. That's pretty impressive data right there. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. Okay, we will discuss our superintendent evaluation process now. So I did send an email out to all board members. Wow, my days are running into each other, but I think that was last week, with a couple of different options and a little bit more information tied to each of those, including some cost and what those options look like. So just to kind of review, to frame our conversation for this evening, we have been using NASB's rubric evaluation model to evaluate superintendents. We've basically just been using their language as it pre-populates into that model. And what they do for us is they provide that in a way that all board members can complete that. Dr. Rhodes completes his self-evaluation, and then they aggregate that data to us. They put it all together, so you don't ever have to worry about a president or somebody on the board collecting all of that. I definitely do not ever want that to be my job. So I appreciate that they do that, and then they kind of mix in, the comments and all of those things so that it really does become more of an anonymous process, and we can look at overarching themes and compare those to how Dr. Rhodes, scored himself and comments he left in areas as well. So that's the process we've been doing. This conversation spurred around the idea of really, when we're implementing a strategic plan, our evaluation process should align with that strategic plan, because that is the job that we've really entrusted Dr. Rhodes to do, is to carry out that strategic plan. And so we need to be intentional in the way that we're evaluating him. He needs to know what those goals are and what we're going to be evaluating on tied into that plan. And so that started raising some questions about, can we alter that evaluation model to make it a little bit more unique to the North Platte Public Schools setting? So I did find out from NASB that we can do that. There are a couple options on a scale of we can customize our totally own evaluation system through them, and there's a one-time fee of $600 to do that, and they will essentially walk us through building that.
And right now we pay
Right now we pay
500.
$500.
So it's $100 more.
It would be 600 more.
Oh,
for the
600
first
more.
year.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I didn't
And
understand.
then
Okay.
years following, as long as you really stay on that same model,
Mhm.
then it just goes back to your 500. Or they said if we are within reason, they will allow us to make some just language changes to the existing model, and that wouldn't necessarily be billed at a full customized evaluation. So we kind of have a scale of things that we can do there with NASB. We can stick with the current rubric, we can totally custom something, or we can kind of take the current rubric and just make some tweaks. The other option that was presented is through KSB, our school attorney. So that was option 3. Their annual fee is $1,500, so it is a little bit more expensive. It was super easy to navigate, so I did that screen record and sent it to you all so you could see. I would say theirs is much more short and sweet, probably, than the NASB model is. They have 4 main domains that they evaluate on: communication, leadership, administration, and vision. And then within each area, there are 4 areas that you assign a score, and then it actually will like pre-populate some comments that you can use based on the score that you gave, or you can write your own. And then similarly, at the end of that, they also will aggregate your data and give us a nice little report of that. So those are kind of the options that we see. Cindy was not able to be here tonight, but she did send me her input. So before we open up for discussion, I will share what she shared. She does like that NASB that we have been using. She liked that the cost was less, so that was one pro for her. She appreciated that there was a way to customize that, which I did not see that option with KSB. And then her frame of thought was basically, if they can do what it is that we're wanting to do, why would we switch? So that's what she had to say. I would love to hear from the rest of the board if you have pros on any of them, cons on any of them, comments or questions that you feel you need answered.
I like the NASB one. I would like you or somebody else to go in it and maybe tweak some of it where we could put our strategic plan in there. I think that's a great idea. And if we can do it where we don't have to pay that additional because we're just changing a few words, that would be fantastic. I do not want to volunteer to read it and do that, but if somebody else does, I think that's the best idea.
I appreciate that.
I just think it's a great idea to put that strategic plan in there because at least for 5 years, that is what we want to reflect.
Any other pros, cons, questions?
My expansive superintendent evaluation. Wait, and both were, I think, good platforms. Not having done it, not really having an idea how it flows going into the first one. It's tough to say one's going to be better or not on my end. So I look at cost, and if we have that ability to tweak it to fit our strategic plan, I think that's a pretty big win moving forward. But again, it's tough for me to have a super strong opinion.
I agree with you on the tweaking. I think that also probably should involve Dr. Rhodes
Yes, absolutely. He'll be
in
part
what
of
we're
it.
having as far as
Absolutely.
tweaking,
Yeah.
because it's for him.
Yeah.
But I would think that KSB at $1,300 whatever a year, and while we've been very happy with NASB, there are some things that we have, we want to tweak. So I think that would be the best way to go about it, would be do that. And if it would go over to the one-time 600, all right, but then it would go back to the other one. So I think that's what I would be in favor of doing, involve Dr. Rhodes in it as well as a couple board members.
Well, and I did see something I forgot to mention that I think is worthy of consideration is I did see something on NASB's information sheet that if you follow up your evaluation with a workshop, they will actually waive the evaluation fee and just do the workshop, I believe. So if that is something that we ever wanted to consider, to have that assistance in setting superintendent goals, those kinds of things, that is something that they offered as well. Joanne, what are your thoughts?
Well, so some pros that I saw with KSB is that they do, after they put all of everybody's information together, they give us some suggested board goals, and then also off of the superintendent's portion, when Dr. Rhodes would complete it on himself, then we would see the goals that populate based on his comments, and then we can kind of compare and make decisions. One thing that I really thought was innovative, I guess, with KSB was that they offered an opportunity to add artifacts. That was something that Dr. Rhodes did on his own last year with the NASB evaluation, but it was kind of nice that KSB had theirs tied to each of the areas. I was a little bit intrigued by the pre-generated comments. It did allow you to put in your own comments, but then there were also some pre-generated comments that were based on kind of the level that you selected on the rubric. I can see kind of downside and positive to that, just in that sometimes if you don't have a lot of experience evaluating someone and you don't really know what kind of comment to make, the pre-generated comments may help you at least kind of get a thought of what to say, and maybe you can still put in your own comment, or I know sometimes with evaluating employees, if you say the wrong thing, sometimes it can, lead to places that you don't want to go. I guess we'll just say that. So anyway, but I'm probably open to seeing a little bit more about what NASB can do. I would be curious to know exactly how customizable, and maybe there's an opportunity that they could develop theirs where Dr. Rhodes could still add artifacts. So I think I would just maybe like some more information on what all could actually be done. I also, as was mentioned, noticed that NASB had more areas to evaluate on than KSB did. I was curious too, with KSB's, if the superintendent, obviously they have it so that he adds artifacts, but I wasn't really clear on if the superintendent also evaluated himself like NASB has the superintendent.
And it follows the same
Self-evaluation.
kind of.
So anyway, I would probably just like a little bit more information about the custom build with NASB. It certainly would be less expensive, but I don't know that necessarily means it would be better. So it'd be interesting to learn some more though.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up the comments, because I actually, as I was clicking through, I appreciated because those pre-populated comments actually did change depending on where you put the score. And so if you're kind of unsure of well, these are the things that I'm seeing, but where do I put that as a score? Those pre-populated comments actually were kind of if you went about it in reverse, kind of a guidance on, this is what would warrant a proficient, or this is those kinds of things. So I did find that to be very helpful in that regard. One thing that I viewed as a pro of NASB versus KSB, when I attended the leadership workshop, they talked about different evaluation models and how their philosophy is to have an even number scale rather than an odd number scale, because, and there were some superintendents there that shared that if they receive an evaluation that's just kind of like middle of the road 3 on a 1 to 5, like that's viewed as a negative. But to somebody that's filling out an evaluation, if you don't really know something, you might be tempted to just go middle of the road 3 and kind of take the easy non-committal way out, where that's not helpful information for 1, and 2, that's typically received as a negative, even if it's not intended as such. So I did like that NASB has a 4-point, because it makes you make a decision of like, I see this or I don't see this. It was a little more direct in that regard. Any other thoughts? We'll get more information on what that custom process looks like for sure. Dr. Rose, what are your thoughts? What are you?
Well, I think I've been pretty clear with the board. I think anything that you put in place for goals or expectations have to be aligned to the vision of the district. And our vision for the district is a strategic plan. And so we need to keep that out in front of us. So I guess I don't have a preference as long as we're looking at you know, that plan being the crux of how you provide feedback and set goals as we move forward. The only thing I would mention is, I think from a timeline standpoint, first of all, you've got plenty of time to do this, but understand whatever you decide for an evaluation does need to go to the Department of Education for approval. It's got to be on file with NDE. So I did put on here, I would anticipate the board is going to utilize the NASB evaluation that we've always used, because we really don't have enough time to get things to Lincoln and get it approved and get it back. Unless it's the NASB original, which is already approved, or it's KSB, because KSB's is already approved with NDE as well. So in statute, there isn't a lot in terms of superintendent evaluation as far as the contents, but nonetheless, it would have to go to the NDE, and the commissioner and the State Board of Education would have to approve that and keep it on file. So I think this is probably a great time to review and research and make a decision, and then when we get into maybe January, February, whatever's decided and approved by the Board of Education, we can get that to NDE for approval on file, and we should be good to go from 26-27 school year. In terms of artifacts, just to clarify, there is the ability for me to put artifacts into the self-eval on NASB. I choose not to, because I'd rather give you everything at one time. So there is that option with the NASB evaluation as well.
That's good to know. I really liked the way that you did that, because there's so much overlap in those artifacts. Like one particular document might apply to 4 different areas that we're evaluating.
For sure.
So you having to attach it 4 different times seems redundant and silly. Okay, do you happen to know what that deadline is, just so the board is aware of when that would need to be submitted?
You know, it's usually spring of the year before.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think if the decision's made in February, March, we can get it off to Lincoln. It doesn't take long. Now, I will tell you, teacher evaluation is much different.
Right.
They really scrutinize, and of course, there's thing in rule and in state statute that you need to have within your teacher evaluation. So that one takes a little longer. This is probably more of a, you know, just a process that we need to get through. But I think February and March will be in very good shape.
When do we do the superintendent evaluation? Next month? October. Yep.
October.
So my thought would be, and I will get some more information and make sure that that's distributed to the board as far as that custom tool, what that process actually looks like. But if that's not something that we can obviously implement this year, my suggestion might be that if we're thinking of going that route for next year, that we use NASB's model this year, and really as we're completing it, put some thought into how does this current model align with our strategic plan?
Good point.
Where do we have some gaps? And then if we follow up, I think January would be a great time potentially for that, because it'll be fresh. Follow up with discussions about what we would maybe like to see changed if we customized it, and then keep the ball rolling on that. But I will get some more information on that in the immediate future so that we have it. And then I think that when we get to that point of developing our language, I think that that's something that potentially the executive team and Dr. Rhodes could work collaboratively on some recommendations, and then bring that to the board for approval of that. Okay, excellent. Anything else on that? Dr. Rhodes, did we cover your notes and thoughts?
Yep, I think
Okay.
we're good.
Perfect, excellent. All right, we will go to our 4000 series policy review. We are just reviewing that first half of these policies this month. I will open it up. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to start off with, or major comments or concerns about any policies in that series?
On 4003, it was highlighted in yellow. There's no names there. Are those inserted later, or? That has to do with the drug testing on drivers.
Was that in the second and third? I had a note about the second and third paragraphs.
So the second paragraph, is that where you saw those yellow highlights?
There were two of them.
Yeah, so actually the policy that apparently we don't have the right one attached. So the one we have right now that is attached has the executive director of finance in there, and then it's got below, in that one line below that second paragraph, it's got the contact for the executive director. So that will be changed, already is changed actually,
Just not contract.
pending the review this evening to facilities director.
Okay.
So that'll be Mr.
right.
Ayers. It's the advantage of having an administrator in that director role, is that he can oversee the drivers and the random drug
Okay.
testing.
That
So-
answers my question?
Yep.
Do you have policy attachments
I don't.
on the agenda?
No, I don't.
Yeah, we don't have attachments on our.
No, we didn't put
Okay,
attachments.
okay,
on.
perfect. I was
No.
like,
I'm just going
missing
into
something here?
There,
Okay.
well, and let me explain why there were no attachments for this evening in terms of those policies. When I went through and I reviewed them last week, and again, the early part of this week, I did not find any of the 4000s up to 4027 that had substantive changes within them. So we didn't attach, nor did we do a packet.
I just went back to what you put in your update to find it.
Yeah.
Last week, yeah.
So a big thank you to Emily and Joanne. They did send a few questions, and I can address those questions unless a board member has anything else in terms of other policies that maybe stood out to them.
That was one question I had.
I don't know, Joanne, you had brought that to our attention in terms of it still being the executive director.
Yes.
Where were you going to look at that policy at?
The website, yeah.
But when you went to look at it, it came up with the highlights?
Well, I
Or
looked
did
at
he click on the
what you-
KSB?
Got it.
The canned one.
what you sent in
Yes,
your update.
yeah, so you were looking, so
That makes sense.
just for clarification, one of the things that we did, and I think we talked a little bit about this at the August regular board meeting, we talked about the hybrid policies that we have, because when we went through several years ago and we moved to the KSB policy service, the district at that time, they kind of melded together some policies between Perry and KSB. So the folder that was shared on the update is just that KSB recommended. It isn't necessarily, obviously, what we have approved in policy. So as you're looking at policy review, go to the website and go to Board of Education, go to policies, and then you'll see where we're at. The reason we shared that folder, and a big thank you to Sheila, she's the one that kind of got that put together for us, is that you could see what the original policy looked like and compare it to the hybrid that we
Gotcha.
have. It's pretty confusing because the language, when you meld those two together, they don't speak the same language. Perry's service is much different than KSB's, so I apologize.
No, it's
I
okay.
didn't do a good
That's-
job of explaining
Yep.
it, so.
I got it answered, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think we both had notes on both 4003 and 4010. Both have some title
Yep,
changes
yep.
that would need to be updated. And then there was a series of notes on just formatting and those kinds of things, which if we have those, do you want us to just send them directly to Sheila?
Sheila has
Okay.
them. I
Those
already
don't have to
forwarded
be
those to Sheila.
discussed in
I
a
love
meeting,
policies.
but
She
yes,
loves policies.
yes, so fun. She
I was curious on the 4003 policy if that included anyone who operates a district vehicle, either rented or owned by the school district.
So 4002, which is drug-free workplace, and 4003, which is specific to drug policy regarding transportation or drivers. That does cover anybody within the district that would be in one of our vehicles driving anywhere, and it doesn't matter if they're transporting students or if it's 3 or 4 coaches that are going to a coaching clinic. So it does cover all those. I will tell you, in my experience in terms of random drug testing as it relates to this policy and relates to the rules at the state level for transportation, generally the random that comes out is actually the employees that are employed as drivers, and they don't serve another function within the district. But it does cover, it is applicable to anybody that's employed in the district if they're going to be driving one of our vehicles, whether they're students being transported or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I was glad you brought that up. I did have a question. There are some policies that just mention language about having to be signed by staff, and I just wanted to
Good
verify our
question.
handbook is signed, correct, by staff?
Actually, within, and Mr. Mills, he and I we visited about this several different times. So what we do within our, we do everything through our employee portal. So all those policies are in the employee portal, and then there's a check for each one of those, excuse me, those policies, and then there's the electronic sign off by the staff.
Perfect. I assumed we had something in place for that, but I just wasn't familiar
Yeah, great question.
with what that was. I had one question on 4009. That was more content related rather than format related. And that I sent that one over to you, Dr. Rhodes. That policy is talking about receiving like things donated to or given to. Is it talking specifically about like vendor relationships, or are we also talking about if there's a donor or somebody in the community that says, hey, what do you need for your classroom, and a teacher would really like some flexible seating, and someone gives that, is that, just so we're clear what that policy is about?
So actually it's a little different than the policies that are in the 3000s on gifts and contributions and bequests to the district. You have that in your 3000s. This is specific to gratuities. Okay. So it's in, if they're providing a service for us, and the good example to be used, and districts have had this come about in the past, you're working on buying uniforms for a team, and then the salesperson will kick back to you garments and all those different types of things. So there's got to be a service that person or vendor provides that is that has monetary value to be a gratuity. And that's where this policy kicks in.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. That clarifies that question.
Could you address the workplace safety
Yeah,
policy too?
that's a great question. So on occasion, we do have policy.
4019.
Yeah.
Yep, 4019 is our workplace injury prevention program and safety committee. And so the districts do, I think, try and meet the obligation of this policy in a lot of different ways. So the first thing in terms of the workplace, the way we used to meet and talk about workplace safety and put trainings and interventions into place was Mr. Simpson meeting with Tanner Patera from Hub International, along with the facility director, to develop a program of a training. That's a monthly meeting that happens. We've switched that up. Now Dr. McDonald, Mr. Ayers, and I meet with Tanner monthly, and really where that stems from is workman comp claims. So that's the first part of the discussion. And then we talk about programming, how we can alleviate the amount of claims that we have across the district. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of this committee is we do have a safety committee that goes out and meets monthly in the buildings. And so we travel to the buildings, and generally we have the cyber piece of that, so Brian attends that from a cybersecurity standpoint as well. The principal is there to really talk about the workplace then. So they give us ideas on workplace. It's the director of facilities, Dr. McDonald, myself, and Sergeant Johnson, who has done it in the past. We've kind of combined or put a hybrid on that particular committee, that it's workplace and it's safety overall. And then the last thing we do when we really report is we kind of do that through our safety report that we provide in September or October, where Sergeant Johnson and Mrs. Busher present to the board. So there are workplace components to our EOP plan that we have in place as a district, and then of course every building has a safety plan as well. And certainly a lot of that has to do with student and staff safety, but it also has workplace in it as well. The last thing I would mention as it relates to this policy is you, I'm sure, have gotten reminders on doing your trainings as board members, like all of our employees do as well. And you'll notice that when it talks about the annual review in this policy, that's when we sit down at the end of the year and decide what trainings need to be in place for safety of employees. So trip, slips, and falls is one of those, bloodborne pathogen. Now, some of those are required by state statute, but as a district, we work with Tanner, and if we notice that we've had more claims due to inappropriate use of ladders, then we make sure that we up that ladder safety video, because there's different levels of videos that we can get. The thing I would say about the report to the board, I think what districts have done is they've kind of they did one report when this became a requirement in policy, and I think probably districts don't do a lot after that initial report. So it kind of led me on as you asked the questions, to develop a more formal program, and then we can get that reported to the board. So that's a lot of words to answer your short question.
Thank you.
I think the report would be really great, just because that's, when we start thinking about long-term, talking about the safety in our buildings, and I think we've had some of these conversations already as it regards to budget. I think it's good for us to just really be in tune with if there are some glaring issues,
Absolutely.
making sure that we know that, so that can be a priority of the board in the budget. Dr. Rhodes, do you feel like that policy as it currently is reflects what we're doing in practice?
I think it does. I think it's just a matter of bringing all those pieces together in a central area and developing that more of a program. Because we have the pieces, we just need to put them together.
And we're cutting this one off at 4027.
Yep,
right?
4027.
Okay.
Before you go any farther.
Nope, we're not moving on, don't worry.
I'm like, on 409, on our website, the receiving gratuities says $250, and the one that was on your thing says $50. So I didn't know what that really was.
So that's the two different policies
Right.
there.
So
What we have on the
different
website is what's approved by
So
the board, so it's
$250, okay. And then I had some people reach out to me wondering if that policy meant that, and what our policy is on teachers having wish lists.
This does not cover the wish list.
Okay.
It's strictly if you're working, again, if you're working on a contract with a vendor, and again, the easiest
Right.
example I can use is you're working with the sales rep from Adidas, and so you're going to buy $14,000 worth of football uniforms, and then they give back to individuals, like your coaching staff or whatever, so many shirts or whatever the case may be.
So the wish
It's got to be a
listing,
gratuity.
that would be a discussion more based in the 3,000.
Yes.
policy.
In the 3,000?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question, because I think there's a lot of, especially this time of year, back to school, there's a lot of questions around
Yeah.
all of those things.
Right.
Yes. Okay, does anybody else have any questions, comments, changes, anything in the first half of these 4,000s? Okay. My goal was to be through that portion of the agenda at 6:30, so we're only 4 minutes behind. That's pretty good. So the remainder of the meeting will be very much focused on budget and taxing authority. So we're going to start with our 2025-2026 updated budget report with Dr. McDonald. We'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Everybody likes talking about budget, and I guess my first thought is a show of hands of who likes taxes. No? Okay. It is the system that we have, and I enjoy talking and discussing about the budget, and I hope this is a collaborative experience for you as board members to listen, get a historical perspective as what I provided, ask questions, seek answers, and the bottom line with this budget is I have gone through, went back to a couple years worth of line items in our income statements. I developed some spreadsheet on current staffing, went through all of the salary and benefits, looked at trends over the past couple of years within the budget and those line items within the income statement itself to either pare down or pare up depending on what those trends were within each individual line item, and then brought that forward to be efficient, to be frugal with this process, but to also take care of the district in the best means that we can with the limitations that we currently have within public school systems. So with that, I would go to the first slide, and really I'm just going to go by the slides, and then I'll stop at each slide, and if you have questions, please ask those questions at that time before we move on. So the first slide is just on the certificated table of values that we receive each year from the county, and so this is a 10-year history of just the total valuation for North Platte Public Schools. It gives you the variances between the years. If you can bring that up there. There you go. And then just the percentage of change as it relates to the district. These valuations are obviously assessed valuation set by the county, and their initial valuations, and then obviously everybody has an opportunity to, if they feel that their valuations, I've always heard that valuations are too high, they'll go and ask questions about that, but I've never ever had anybody come in with a low valuation assessed value and go in and say, I think this is way too low. So are there any questions in regards to just the 10-year history there in regards to the certification of taxable value?
Can you talk just a little bit about the ones that are in the negative? Because one of the things that I'm thinking is if we had significantly lower valuations in those years where we have a negative variance, then obviously we've had a little bit of time where we've had to kind of make up for that too, possibly in our budget.
Well, yeah, so the variance itself is, when you see those negative values, is just the overall assessed value of property within the county. So there may not have been dramatic increases within, what the county, and particularly within the city of North Platte, there might not have been increases. There may have been some overall decreases within those assessed values when they assessed or ran their assessment reports, and so that's what you see. So with economic development, if you see a lot of economic development starting to happen, or you see more houses, those types of things, then you're going to see a rise in those assessed values. And in those particular years, there might not have been, obviously the increase, and maybe it was just stagnant and it just fell below, and there wasn't a positive increase in assessed value.
Well, and one of those years is post-COVID, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wondered too, when I sometimes maybe when you see a decrease in total valuation, there could be properties that were originally on the property tax rolls that were then purchased by a nonprofit, or somebody that might be tax exempt in that way too. That would your valuation would still be there, but that would impact your tax revenue that comes from those things too. I did think that was interesting to see that data. I would not have anticipated that there would be a decrease in total valuation ever. So,
any other questions with that slide? The next slide is just I just wanted to have a comparison being new to North Platte and then having comparison to like-sized districts with like-sized student enrollment throughout the state. I just, after visiting Dr. Rhodes and having a better understanding, these are 5 districts that are pretty similar in size compared to North Platte. So I just ran a comparison. I thought it was interesting. I thought I'd provide that information in regards to the difference in state aid that you can see between the districts across the board. Enrollment is pretty steady with those districts for K-12. Your pure pupil cost on your average daily membership is pretty similar. You can look at their total general fund receipts over the course of at least 1 year. Obviously, I don't have the audited portion of that for everybody for this current school year, so that's why there's no information there. The average monthly receipts, average monthly expenditures, and then you can kind of take a look at the total levy over the course of a couple of years there between the districts. And then the beginning fund balance that each district starts with on any given year, which we've kind of talked about, and you've mentioned a few goals on some percentages that you'd like to try to achieve or attain. And so you can kind of see where we are compared to others. And then so forth, beginning fund balance with your building funds and your depreciation funds are on there as well. So I just thought that comparison was interesting to see, kind of gives you an idea. I know that every city, every community is a little bit different, but yet it does give you an idea of where others are. And when you have variances of state aid, obviously that can offset those receipts in regards to those requests each and every year by those different districts. So,
Do you have any ideas of why our state aid is so significantly different?
Oh, that's a great question. Between all of those, I outside of enrollment is pretty similar.
Are demographics different? Are like the makeup of ag land to?
Because Ralston is very similar to us, but then the other schools are.
Yeah, some of the demographics on this, like South Sioux City, is I'm trying to think what, there's a gal on our committee, they're 93% minority.
Yeah.
And that many of them is also free and reduced price lunches. So that's, when you look at their state aid, that jumped out at me, but knowing that from what Marla had told me, that makes a lot of sense, because that's one of the factors that figures in. Lexington is, if you look at them as far as that as well, that figures into it.
So that's a great question, because I did study that, but what I'll do is go back and look at the past couple of years of state aid on Indy's website, and then I'll look at the variances in there, and then I'll do a comparison, send that to the board, and just you'll have a better understanding of the reason why it looks the way it does within each community. So.
Yeah, I think to Skip's point, if you go back many months when Mr. Simpson started to present projections, and we talked about state aid, you'll remember him really talking a lot about the poverty allowance,
right?
And how you put in as much as you can to an area that's allowance within the formula. And it's not an EL allowance, but it's like that. So the more diversity you have from a demographic standpoint, it goes in as an allowance so that your needs go up, and then in turn you get more state aid based on that. So it won't be an easy find, because you're going to have to go into every one of those districts and see what those allowances are. Now, I will tell you that Ralston, one of their huge pieces of any state aid they receive is option enrollment. Ralston gets a ton of money for option enrollment from everybody around them. So, not that they get a terribly large amount of state aid, but they do, what they do receive, a good portion of that is option enrollment.
And so it's the needs side of that. So if you have more in resources, which they may determine that North Platte has more resources available to them, then they're saying that you don't need as much. And so that may be something common.
So another question I had, and this was a conversation that you and I actually had earlier today, was based on the levy. So obviously our general fund beginning balance is also lower than some of these comparable districts. And so one of the things that we had talked about was that if our total levy was closer to the $1.05, even if it was for a couple of years, then that would help us to be able to build up some of those funds to a point where we could not have to have not the extra budget authority, with the bank.
Operating.
Yeah, yep.
Line of credit.
The line of credit. And then also we would be in a better position to be able to reduce taxes, just because our other funds would be more sustained, or we wouldn't have to be worried about some
Right.
of, getting in compromising positions.
Once you reach the amount that you've set as a goal, then you're maintaining that, and it's not a roller coaster ride, through that process once you get to that point. So that's when you're controlling those expenditures even more based on, once you've attained that goal as a district, as far as having the cash on hand so that you can meet your expenditures without getting to that line of credit, and then you can get into interest payments and those types of things. I mean, in like Nebraska Department of Education, that represented with like Michelle Cartwright and Bryce Wilson, they always will tell you, and they'll tell every district this, that you want to be at least 3 to 4 months out, above your expenditures.
And we're not there.
We're on average less than a month right now. Yeah. Well, I should, based on the county treasurer balance coming in September, we're less than a month. Yeah,
Okay.
we don't start the year right now. In essence, we're banking on the county treasurer balance for September to cover that and get us started. So other districts don't. When you look at this comparison, they're not in that situation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The next slide talks about general fund budget of disbursements. Again, I've given you a 10-year history here. I did fill in for the, based on the income statement and the different trends and processes that I worked through in regards to the 25-26 budget. One thing I want you to notice is on the necessary cash reserve, if you go up there on the trends compared to what I have looked into and strongly recommend is moving that, which is your necessary budget authority, into just your total disbursements. And the reason that you do that is because this year we're very close to amending the budget, which means you would have to go in, have another notice, you would have to have another board meeting to amend the budget if your expenditures were over what you previously indicated. And so because you can't go over what your budget amount is, but if you have the budget authority, which is the necessary cash reserve line, you could take those funds and move it into as an expenditure to cover your disbursements for the auditors. One of the things, if you don't do that, that's going to red flag. The auditors are going to come in and ask questions, and then the state auditor is also going to be wondering what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing if you don't amend your budget at that time. So that's the difference there when you look at budgets of disbursements. But if you go to total requirements over there to the right, you will see that it is in line with the rest of the years. It's actually 1% change from the prior year as far as total requirements there. So those numbers didn't change. I just wanted to bring that to your attention, is just moving that budgetary authority into your expenditure disbursement lines. So therefore, when you get to the end of the year, you don't have to focus on amending a budget or anything like that. you'll have the authority to already do that on first approval, so. Questions?
So looking at this 2024-2025 school year,
Yep.
the total budget of disbursements and transfers is that 52, and then the total requirements is 58. So maybe I'm not following, that means that we spent more than we budgeted to spend? Or explain to me the discrepancy there.
So that if you add the 52 to the cash reserve of 53, that's where you get your total requirement.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it, okay.
So all I did is I took what was going to be the cash reserve for the 25-26, just put it in with the total disbursements. So your total disbursements match your total requirements. So if you go down that whole total requirements, it's in line with those years. It's just moving the cash reserve into the disbursement, so you won't have to amend your budget. So it's not producing any more or any less in regards to what the district is going to ask for. It's just moving that line item for the budget authority if it were to take place.
So then are those funds no longer allocated as cash reserves? How does that?
Well, so cash reserve is kind of a misnomer. So when you hear cash reserve, you think, well, that's the cash, that's what we have. Well, it's what I wish they would just say budget authority, or a line for necessary budget authority, so that you can utilize all the budget authority that the state is giving you. So NDE gives you a budget authority within their worksheet, and you have to work with. So in regards to the necessary cash reserve, so over the years with Mr. Simpson, he would put in a cash reserve to zero out the budget authority. You're not asking for any additional taxes. He's just zeroing that out to give the authority if the disbursements would go over the original amount. Well, in the other years in here, you weren't close to needing to amend your budget, so you didn't have to do that. But this year, we're very close, and in future years, I am predicting that we're going to be close. So instead of coming back and amending that to go into that cash reserve and have an extra meeting and move all of that, we're just putting it in as a total disbursement, and then therefore it'll ebb and flow with the budget as we move throughout the course of the year. And you won't have to amend your budget to do that. So.
Is that counterproductive in the goal of trying to build those necessary cash reserves up?
No, because you're thinking of cash reserve meaning the cash that we have. This is really truly creating cash on hand and a beginning balance. So when you're thinking of cash reserve is the same way I think of cash reserve, and that is what is your beginning balance to start the year? Is that red or green? And over the last 5 years, it's been red. And we're trending towards green, and we want to keep it there. So that it doesn't really have anything to do with cash on hand in regards to that. It is simply moving that so that you don't have to amend your budget by saying, hey, we went over our total budget of disbursements for the year by, whatever, $500,000. Instead of having an additional meeting to amend your budget and then say, well, we're going to move our cash reserve, we're going to do this, we're going to move this in as a disbursement, so that we're recognizing that we, as a district, were over and above what we anticipated, and just to move that process forward. So that's all that is simply doing.
I'll have to do some thinking on that process, because I do think if we exceed our budget, I think we kind of owe it to our taxpayers to have a meeting and make that public and approve that. So I don't think that that's a horrible process. I know we don't all love extra meetings, but I'll have to do some thinking on changing that process.
There's some other districts that have done that, so if you want some comparisons, I can provide.
Yeah, I think that would actually be really great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Next one is just on state aid. Gives you a 10-year history in regards to the overall state aid that the district has received. You can see the variances and the differences from 16-17 to the 25-26 year. Any questions? Pretty straightforward. Next slide is the depreciation fund. You can kind of see where we are with the current estimate for the 25-26 year, the transfers that we have provided for the activity transfers. Stays pretty common and standard there. That is what has been approved within the budget. Obviously, there's been additional transfers over the course of the other years that have taken place for the depreciation account for different expenditures for facility infrastructure, teaching and learning, technology, whatever it might be. Questions on the depreciation fund?
I think, did Cindy have a question about this that she had asked you? She had mentioned to me that she had a question about.
She wanted to know if we had taken some depreciation dollars back from what was originally transferred during the course of the year back into the general fund to help balance that. And we went in, we had some discussions about that, and then we took back, roughly 75% of that, I would say, overall, back to the general fund to help bring that to what we hope at the end of the year will be a positive cash balance moving forward. So that estimate reflects where we believe we will be at the beginning of the 25-26 year.
Is that a standard process that we do that? I know this is your first, so I apologize for asking this question, but is that standard to transfer money from depreciation back to general fund to balance that out, or is this like?
I'm not going to say it's standard because I've never had to do it before, but the districts I've worked for have had a better cash balance moving forward. So therefore, that's why typically within that process, I have never transferred dollars into the depreciation account until the end of the year, and I've always met with the Board of Education and said, okay, I believe here's what we'll be at the end of the year as far as cash balance. I believe this is the amount that we have for transfers that we can transfer into the depreciation. At the end of the year, we can move that forward. We can build off of that instead of during the course of the year when you don't know where you're going to end up at the end of the year. So no, it's not standard. Do I believe that it's relevant and needed to be done to help improve our position? Yes.
And you said you transferred 75% of it?
Of what we had, of what was put in this year. Yeah. So I think, we were at like 3.4 or 3.5 million or whatever that was compared to, whatever the previous year was like 3 million some odd. But it was what was transferred in. There was already some that was already expended out of there, so.
I think trying to pinpoint where my question and concern is with that. I think my concern is when we as a board approve a budget, in years past when we've approved that budget, the depreciation funds, like those things have kind of been line itemed out. And so as a board, you sent over your list of reasons that a board may increase taxing authority. And some things that North Platte will see coming up in the future, and I think I saw track was one of them. And it was my understanding that we've been setting aside money in the depreciation fund for the track specifically. So as a board, when we're looking at budget and we're thinking that money is being set aside for this purpose, and then to find out that it's been transferred back over here for this, that doesn't necessarily feel like we're sticking with what has been approved for the budget for that year. And then it creates these areas where we have a need that we really thought that need was being addressed already with a depreciation fund.
Yeah, I guess the issue that I would bring is that that's one of the reasons why we're doing a line of credit right now. So if you want to continue that practice, we'll pull those funds back down and put them in depreciation if that's what the board would like to see.
Well, and I think, I'll just interject real quickly. So I think what you're going to see moving forward procedurally as it relates specifically to the depreciation fund, as Dr. McDonald said, I think the normal practice is you get to May, you know where you're at with your general fund, you go to your Board of Education to approve the transfers. It's been my experience in most districts. This district has not done that. Now, you've been given a line item, but if you look at the budget doc that is prepared, it shows $140,000 transfers. It does not show transfers anywhere else within our general fund. The way it was built, which I don't think there's nothing wrong with it, it was built within other line items. And Dr. McDonald and I, that isn't the way we've done school budgets in the past. So what we do is we put it into the transfer code in the hope that we're going to have those funds at the end of the year to transfer into depreciations. But we have to, here's where my priority is. We have to protect our instructional programs in this district. So for me, my recommendation to this board is you take care of your general fund. Let's get that general fund in line. Then we're going to take care of depreciation. And then we're going to take care of special building fund. We've got to get the general fund in line. We've got to, if you really believe in our mission statement on what we want to provide our kids, it's the instructional programs, it's those advantages so they can be competitive. And we've got to protect that instructional program. Well, if we're transferring $1.3 or $1.5 million to depreciation every year, and we're starting out in the red in our general fund for the next school year, that doesn't work for us philosophically. It's just kind of where we're at philosophy-wise right now. So,
well, it's like letting money pile up in your savings account and having overdraft to be your checking account.
Right.
I mean,
That's
I don't disagree with that.
I think we all agree with you.
Yeah.
I think we all support what you're saying and doing. I think it's just kind of a shock because we didn't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe a budget workshop would be good because we have a new guy.
Right.
Well,
And so it just reads different
from
to
a
us.
process standpoint, if we get this practice put into place, you're going to be approving transfers in May or the June board meeting. Is when we're going to bring it to you, and we're going to say we're recommending this be transferred into employee benefit. We're going to recommend this amount be put into depreciation, and that's because we're solvent in the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just for me to be transferring those funds at the end of the year, knowing that we're going to start in the negative of. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I just think we need to build that up. And then we still have the $2.7 million in depreciation. So we're going to still be able to take care of things that come up. And we still have line items in there that are for the track. They're for those big items that depreciate over time. So we took back part of what was transferred this school, not what was already in there. And if we would have caught it earlier, we just wouldn't have transferred that much money over to the depreciation fund. So.
I think that makes sense. And I actually, now that I'm thinking through this, I am actually pretty sure that we asked a question probably a year or so ago that was very similar in nature to this, because I think there were board members that had asked, why can't we just transfer some of our own funds instead of taking a line of credit? Mm-hmm. And I think there was some confusion around maybe what was actually being asked. Yeah. But I actually think the board was suggesting something very similar to what you're doing. I just want to make sure that we really have an understanding.
Sure.
Philosophically, I agree with not being in the red so that we have money in savings over here. I just also want to make sure that money tends to flow in and out of general fund. General fund subsidizes other things, athletic fund and other things. And my fear would be that if the money's here, it's a little easier to spend, and at the end of the year, we don't have funds to put into some of these long-term goals and projects. So I think that's my hesitancy, but philosophically, I actually do think this is the right move. I just have a little bit of discomfort with it.
Yeah, no, I need to apologize because, when I looked at the budget, it said 140 in transfers and there was no approval. I mean, if you're approving it as a line item, I didn't view it that way. I viewed it as, well, they just moved that over. So to get us back to a more balanced state, we need to move that back moving forward so we can make better decisions as to the way that looks. So it wasn't It wasn't malice or anything like that. It was
Right.
intentional to try to get our general fund back to being solvent, and then that would help you make better decisions moving forward, so.
And I just want to say, when I make comments, I guess I should not speak for anybody else, and I ask questions, I am not blaming you of doing anything wrong. I'm just asking because I don't know.
Yeah.
Because, my checkbook doesn't look like this. So,
No, and I say that just simply because.
Yeah.
I wish it did.
I would feel more comfortable having a budget, a line item of $500,000 that we're hoping that we can transfer at the end of the year. When we get to that point, we
Right.
can say, yes, we can do that.
no.
And then we can build upon that. That's,
I just want to make sure you didn't think, I thought you were being underhanded
Yeah, no,
or
no.
anything. That's
Yeah,
not it at
I
all.
appreciate
Just-
that.
Yeah.
Well, and the reality is, after meetings like this, then the news publishes articles, and then all of our emails and phones blow up and ring with people that have questions about, well, why did you do that, and why did you do this? So if we have a really solid understanding of this is why, it just really, it helps with the community understanding what's going on too.
absolutely understand. Any other questions there with the appreciation?
No, I didn't plan on spending that long on that page,
That's
so
all right.
thank you.
The next one is just special building, and you'll notice the 25-26 line there is a 0% ask, and that's simply because we are currently up against our spending limit as far as the authority is in regards to what the state is telling us. And so therefore, to balance that, our general fund levy is going to take up the bulk of that, and we would ask for, because we're at that point right now, if you were to and wanted to put some funds within the special building as you have done in the past, that's going to be an additional few cents, and so therefore it would require us to attend additional meetings for that purpose. So just want you to know and be aware of that.
So, quick question.
Yep.
Okay, so it talks about how that money is used to acquire, improve sites, and/or to erect, alter, or improve buildings. So does that include things like roofs and carpet and those types of
Well, it
things?
would, depending on if it's new or not. If it's a replacement, I think that you can still utilize depreciation funds for some of those. But it is specifically for new building infrastructure. That's
Okay.
typically how they view that. So,
Okay. Thank you.
the next slide is on qualified capital purpose undertaking fund. Again, this is an area that we can utilize. It's still currently outside of the spending limit based on some bonding types of things that you can utilize with the qualified capital purpose undertaking fund. So within that, as you can see, I did put a line item there to increase that simply because the special building fund wasn't necessarily going to be able to be utilized for additional tax dollars there. And what I highlighted here for the qualified capital purpose undertaking is you can only utilize these funds for life safety code violations or life safety hazards. And so there's a lot of things that you can put within that as it relates to buildings and facilities and infrastructure and life safety codes. So something to think about. Certainly have first suggestions there.
Are there things that we have a need for, that $505,051 in the 2025-26 school year, that you're, like, there's a kind of a plan of this is what QC PUP funds would go towards, or?
I don't know that
just
there's a specific plan other than, listening and hearing about, just some safety types of things around the campuses and what that could potentially be. You have HVAC could certainly qualify as a life safety hazard. You can make that argument in regards to quality air. Any type of abatement types of things.
Does it include things like extra cleaning if we have like a Hopefully we don't have a pandemic outbreak again, but you know, something a little bit smaller, but you know, it's affecting a lot of kiddos in a building, and so we have to send someone in to really like do some serious deep cleaning kind of thing.
I think you can tie in that life safety hazards and things that you're trying to do as a district within that language. So my understanding is yes.
Are the expenses that are qualified under QCPF, I mean, those are expenses that could be paid elsewhere, potentially under special building, depending on what they are, or general fund,
Sure.
or other places, correct? Because I think the concern that I have heard from QCPF is it's kind of a way to circumvent the levy cap and the pink slips and those kinds of things, because this levy amount does not count towards that cap, is that correct?
Right.
Yes, okay. So that's a concern that I heard raised on this, is that it's just not quite as maybe transparent in our total tax levy amount. But just worth mentioning. Good to know where those things can be paid out of.
Yeah, I think it's in the total levy, you know, obviously within the notice, but it's not a part of that spending limitation.
Right.
Currently, because it's considered, you know, it's considered a bond for the next, I think, 2 years is what I had
Yep.
on the sheet, so. Anything else in regards to qualified capital purpose undertaking? Next sheet just talks about total tax request. You can see from the 24, well, it's 10 years worth here, but 24-25 to 25-26, where the general fund currently is, again, the qualified capital purpose undertaking, and then the special building. Your total tax request then between the two funds is $31,875,768. There's a 4% increase from the prior year, but your total levy is less at 0.949 compared to 0.958 from 24-25.
So it would be roughly a $1.3 million increase in taxes.
Yeah. So when you consider, you know, after looking at just the increases of salary and benefits for this year, you know, we're at 1.8 million, and so, you know, when you put those types of numbers within the budget and then you pare down some of the others, just trying to create that balance there. Questions with the tax request? The next one is just, again, I think maybe you've seen this information. I did go back and tweak the 25-26 line there, but just property tax authority. Again, it's property tax authority simply means that it's the authority to do more if you see a need or have a need to generate more dollars for the district. So within this, like if you look at from the 23-24 base year property tax authority to where the property tax asking was in 24-25, the you know, your increases on the salary and benefits alone were $500,000. So when you look at the property tax authority compared to where the property tax asking, and then you look at the property tax authority for 24-25, it didn't cover that amount of just that increase alone. So again, that's part of your authority if you need it. So you're additionally looking at the authority, and I know that's something that you know, that we have on here as a resolution. But again, that's the authority to be able to have more authority as a school district to ask for more if you need to. If you don't utilize that authority, you can't get that authority back. So you as a board can't get it back. Future boards can't get it back. So, that's the caveat to the authority. So if you look at the, from the 24-25 property tax authority to the 25-26 property tax asking, we are right at covering salary and benefits, basically, not anything else in regards to that increase when you're looking at the authority itself. So just, I want to point that out to you. So in my opinion, and this is my opinion, when you look at property tax authority, I believe that it's giving you as a district and the future of the district, the more opportunity for your own control, your own local control, because you have an opportunity to do something if you need to. If you don't have the authority to do that, or future boards don't have the authority to do that, then you have to use other means. And what are those other means? Well, I only know of two. One is the lease purchasing option, which you have to use your sinking fund, and we currently aren't using our sinking fund because we're up against the spending limit, or you have to go forward with the bond. And if you have something major happen, or whatever the case might be. So, those are two options to cover some of those types of needs that could arise.
So basically, if we had, I don't know what kind of catastrophes wish upon us, but if we had,
any natural disaster, those types of things.
Any like a tornado come through, whatever, and we're looking at having to do something, we don't have the money to do it, and we'd have to go.
We have insurance.
Well, you have insurance, but it's not going to cover like the cost of like total replacement of buildings and supplies and all of those things. So, but even if it was a hailstorm, we had to use some of the budget authority last year, and so there's things just because of where we're at in our budget that we don't have the extra funds to be able to take care of some of even the smaller things, because we have enough to cover salaries, but we don't have enough to cover extra things that may come up.
So if you take a look at just 24-25, where your property tax asking was and what your property tax authority was, obviously the authority was less than what the asking. So you did pass the resolution, so therefore you gained the 5%. You didn't ask for any more in taxes necessarily because of what you originally budgeted for. But if you didn't have the authority to do that, that you couldn't utilize that additional 1.1% for that purpose.
What you're presenting for our budget, your proposal of this $31,875,768 total tax request for 2025-2026, that falls within our property tax authority as it is right now without this additional increase, correct?
Yeah, even more from the standpoint that the property tax asking is only focused on general fund and sinking fund, and sometimes.
Oh, right, and I added the.
And sometimes quality, yeah. Sometimes that is, unless it's a bond, then that's outside.
So if the board were to vote no to the increased taxing authority, the impact would not be on this year's budget options based on what's presented here. The impact would be on future years.
Well,
am I understanding
yes,
correct?
I think it's both, actually. So I think that if you pass the resolution for the authority, yes, future years, but also if it would give you the authority, if you wanted to do something within the sinking fund this year, it would give you that authority to utilize those additional dollars because of the resolution. You don't have to, I'm just saying it would give you the authority to do that as a full board if you decide that's something you want to do.
Otherwise, we're gonna have to, excuse the expression, but beg, borrow, and steal to get things if we don't approve the extra authority.
It just limits you. It just limits you. Simply limits you.
And if something happened that we didn't have the extra funds to,
right,
then no matter what it is, we're going to have to go to the public and say,
right.
Oh, we messed up.
Yeah, you're not asking for additional taxes or anything. It's just giving you the authority to do something now or into the future. And if you don't, then you lose that opportunity basically each year. Now, this is something that currently the legislature is still allowing. I don't know if if they're going to allow it into the future. So sometimes you take a look at these things and maybe you want to take advantage of that while it still exists, so.
Especially where they have the commission looking into how school funding is going to.
I think there was a question on, I had used the example, you know, if the district does experience growth in terms of enrollment, I think you'd want the ability to maybe receive more dollars, and this would help you do that in the coming years. And the question was, well, won't the state take care of that through the state aid formula? Yeah, they will, but it's year in arrears. So you're going to be functioning with, let's say, 120 more kids, but you're not going to see the state aid for that until the following year, because that state aid is based on, you're obviously year in arrears. So just to clarify, yeah, we anticipate as enrollment grows that state aid will go up the way the current formula is, but again, you're a year behind in terms of receiving those. So you're still going to have to educate all those kids that are new to your district, which could be staff. I mean, it could be a myriad of things. It could be a little bit of work on, you know, classrooms. It could be new staff that we need to bring in, or those different types of things. So
well,
just to answer maybe that question that's out there.
Well, and we have had some conversations about, you know, if worse came to worse, which we really hope that it doesn't come to worse, but that we would have to do some consolidations. And so at least for now, this extra budget authority would maybe put that down the road, maybe just a little bit more until we really know what the growth in this area is going to look like.
I think probably an unpopular conversation to have, even compared to property taxes, is closing buildings. But if you go back and reference the district of like size tests, we have 11 buildings that we educate children in our district. And then we have a central office, we have our maintenance building. So we actually have 13 buildings. Those other buildings have 8 buildings that they educate kids. So when you talk about efficiencies or inefficiencies, you've got to look at your system and structure as well. Now, I'm not saying anything about consolidating and closing buildings. I'm just telling you that that's a reality as it relates to any budget is, you know, the amount of facilities that you have. But if you look at the Ralstons and the Lexingtons and the Hastings, and you look at their makeup and what they have for buildings, we have more facilities than those other districts do. So I think our hope is that through what we're seeing with economic development is we're just gonna bring families and kids in. We're gonna fill the buildings that we have.
I wonder what the public thinks. About raising like the property taxes compared to consolidating buildings. Not that that's a discussion we're having, but I would like to know their opinions, because they're consistently coming at me about the taxes that they're paying, and maybe if we're raising the taxes, then we can push that down years, the consolidation. Maybe that's something that we should look into. You know how I feel about closing buildings, so that's not on my agenda. But I would like to know what the public thinks about that, especially when they get that postcard in the mail that says, here's what you're paying for North Platte Public Schools. Like, would you rather see that go up? What was it last year? What did Stuart tell us? A couple of years ago, whatever, it was gonna go up like $50, $100
For
for
the
an average
priced
house
home.
Yeah.
compared to consolidating schools. Just, I mean, we are sitting here, but it would be nice for people to reach out.
I think that's conversations you can have with people though too, is they're asking
Oh, yeah,
about their
definitely.
taxes. You know, you can say, well, it's one or the other, so.
Well, I don't want to phrase it that way, but yeah, no.
Sometimes it is though, so.
The other thing, you know, in the TIOSA formula, which we have talked about before, when valuations go up, the state aid goes down because they say you can afford to pay more. And that's, you know, I've mentioned this numerous times at board meetings because I think a lot of people don't understand that. And so when the evaluations go up, you're going to get less state aid because the state thinks that your people can pay more to afford the schools.
Well, and that's probably something we're looking at too with the development is, obviously, we're probably gonna have more.
Spread it out.
It's gonna look more like, oh yeah, you guys can afford it because
Right.
there's development happening in your area, so.
Any other questions on tax leading authority aspect of it? The last slide, you said 15 minutes, it's almost an hour, sorry.
Basically the same thing.
Okay. 25-26, this budget represents a decrease of overall requirements by 1%, beginning cash balance closer to, or maybe even a positive balance. An estimated receipt decrease of 3.5%. Building fund will not, the building fund will be a non-taxable account to meet the state tax authority for North Platte Public Schools. Qualified capital purpose undertaking will be utilized for school safety infrastructure concerns. The 10 historical year perspective is that total requirements increase by 0.93% per year over 10 years, while the state aid has decreased by 19.8% over the decade. And then the last part of that is just some questions that I had. I don't know if we've answered all of those questions. For you as board members, as I seek a little bit of guidance, or that we seek a little bit of guidance, just want to end with, I think we all have the best interests of North Platte Public Schools in mind. And if you're asking my opinion, I would ask for more than what I'm presenting to you this evening, just because I'm impatient and I want to make sure that we are solvent next week instead of waiting 5 years. So
I was wondering why we have this as an action item for tonight when we don't usually have action items on the committee of a whole.
Well, I think that, I know that we have communicated that these are non-voting meetings, but that frankly is not true. You take 3 actions at every one of these meetings. Now, I understand that it's more of an informality than anything, but, I think anything that we've done policy in the past because we were up against state statutes as it related to the date that they had to be passed by the board, so we've done that. You had an action item at the last meeting that wasn't on the agenda. So this one is a state statute related. It wasn't on there as an action item, but so this is part of state statute. It needed to be noticed a little bit different than hearings do. Generally, the hearings are, and make sure I'm right here, Dr. McDonald, 4 days?
yes.
And this one is a 5-day, I believe. And in September, you have a couple other hearings anyway. So that's one of the reasons that we put it on. I will tell you, most districts have this item June or July. They do it early. They kind of do it as they're building their budget, so they know whether, if they really think they need to access those extra funds, it's already passed, so as they build the budget and present it to the board, it's already in there and it's done, so.
Why didn't we do it that early?
What's that?
Why didn't we do it that early?
Well, with everything else that was going on at some meetings, we didn't put it on the agenda, and we really didn't. At that point, we didn't know where we were going to be for sure, and we wanted to get a read from the board. So, and I think the question was asked, if you could table this, and you certainly can. We'd have to notice it again for the September meeting, which, that's not a huge deal, but we would just have to get that publication in the paper, so.
Can I ask a question here in regards to the tax authority? Is there, we're having a discussion, what would be the reasoning in your minds not to do that?
I always am against any sort of raising the taxes unless it makes sense. So if I have an issue with the money that we have coming in is more than we had last year, make it work. That's how everybody in the world has to make it work. The school district should be able to too, and it shouldn't affect the children.
tell you where it's very much I've met the government, we are the government, and anytime they ask for more, they're not gonna give it back. That's always concerning to me. Even if we're not gonna use it and looking at the budget, I mean, I appreciate it, looks great you're doing it, for especially just jumping in and trying to catch up and having the goals, it's great, but I just have a hard time saying, hey, we're not gonna ask for it, but it's not gonna, every year, we're not gonna say 5 more, 5 more, 5 more, 5 more, and then eventually, not everybody at this table's here, and somebody says we're gonna make some big jump on our citizens. What you're saying makes sense, that's why, I'm kind of in a thought process right now, so.
So, but the 5 is only, I mean, last year we only accessed 1.1% when we had approved 5, or up to 5. And isn't there a limit set by the state on how much you can set? Like, there's a maximum that the state says you can set your budget authority at based on the size of school you are, right?
Can you go back to that last one?
Because there are some schools that were able to ask for up to 7%.
Yeah. Depending on depending on your size. Yeah. So like just for example, on the 25-26 year, if you go down to property tax authority, that's currently our authority is right now. And so that, when I talked to Michelle Cartwright at NDE, she said, well, the authority that we're giving you is what our belief at NDE is where you should be running your current budget. And so that's what her indication was. And so that's why that is the authority that they're already giving you. So the authority is actually over and above your current spending limit as it is. So if you wanted to utilize more cents still within your sinking fund or your special building fund, you could do that. Again, this is just the authority. It has nothing to do with, it protects you basically. It gives you more opportunities if you need them. I mean, that's really all it is.
Yeah, so by approving it, it's not saying that we are definitely going to access this. It's just saying that we can if we need to.
You can approve it and come back and say just the opposite in regards to the total budget. You can, there's a lot of different.
I think some important clarifications of language that we use is that authority is set by the state of what they believe would be appropriate for us to be at budget-wise. So us voting with a supermajority of the board to increase that isn't us accessing what's already readily available to us. It's actually us going above and beyond what the state currently feels is appropriate. And I think that is an important clarification, and it does have long-term impacts. So Justin, I see where your concerns are at. So yes, we could increase this by 5%, and that doesn't mean that we this year are going to access 5%, but that 5% is forever. That has now been increased to that amount, and that builds because percents build on top of each other. So if next year we increase another 5%, that 5% is bigger because this year increased by 5%. And so it's increasing in perpetuity. I mean, it's in all of it currently not really based on a specific need, but based on a speculation of a need that may come. And I really struggle with that. I see, and I always want to make sure that as a district, we're not in a position where we're risking our academic programs or being able to pay highly qualified teachers. I mean, all of that is obviously our top priority, but I struggle with, if it's not needed right now, making that decision that does have that lasting impact. Our taxpayers are struggling just like we are. And even if we're not using it, the optics of saying that we are increasing that, if you are somebody that is struggling to pay rent every month and not have your utilities turned off, and we're like, we're gonna increase that just because our bills are going up. I mean, I see why our taxpayers are a little frustrated with us. And so I have some real hesitations about making decisions based on on those speculations. And it's not anything against what you've proposed budget-wise, and I really appreciate the thorough report and the way you've answered our questions tonight. Like, I really genuinely appreciate that, and I think we're on the same page on a lot of things. I don't know that I can get on board with this.
And it's not an indictment on you guys as far as the plan. Like, I'm not saying I don't trust what you're doing, but I hear you. It's the years down the road when we're not all sitting at the table, or you guys aren't sitting at the table. Government has it. We're government. They have a tendency to say, it's there, we're gonna grab it, even if that, we've got 2 million-ish right now of extra property tax authority, and we're asking for another 1.4 that we're saying we're not gonna use, and that's fine, we're not gonna use it. But again, perpetuity, it just optically doesn't look great. I'm not saying it's not the right choice, but it's definitely something to think about on my end.
And there are, I understand there are other caps in place. There's a cap on what your levy can be. But if we're being really frank about what's happening at the county, if they continue raising valuations the way that they have been, that levy cap means not a whole heck of a lot, because you can keep that levy the same, and if this number's going up, this total tax number is gonna keep going up too. So, I mean, even having that in place doesn't make me feel super comfortable about increasing taxing authority. Not if we don't have a really concrete reason and a need for doing it right now.
My concern is the future. That we could be hamstringing boards, administration down the road, and then that would absolutely cut into students. Having to put, if we have a budget issue and we got to put 40 kids in a class because we can't hire enough teachers because we have to do that, and we can't do this and we can't do that because we didn't pass something down the road earlier. That is my big concern, because you don't want 40 kids in a class, in any class. Let alone, elementaries need to be smaller, middle school, and then high school, kids get lost in that big a class. So the future thing is what I really am concerned with, absolutely. And that's why I would favor it, because wearing down. Not that we're going to use it. I think a lot of people have the idea that we're just going to use it because we say we can. But to make it easier each year, down the road, would help the district immensely in the long run.
Do we approve use of the extra budget authority other than at this meeting?
What do you mean?
Like, so if we need to access the extra budget authority, is that something that we should?
You would have
That'd
to
be
bring
the
back,
budget.
so you would vote on the tax authority, and then we would approve a budget, and then if there were a need that came up to exceed that, you would have to have another meeting to adjust your budget.
Right.
Correct?
No.
Or because you've made this
You're
vote
just-
on the authority, you can just increase the budget in the
If-
middle of the year?
Once the resolution is, no, you're setting your budget and your taxes at this next meeting on the 8th.
Yes, so I think what she's asking is if something were to happen to where a big need comes up and you need to exceed that budget amount, what's the process? Like, there is something built in to where we can't just readily access this
So-
extra authority without
Right.
reapproving a new
So-
budget.
so-
Am I right, Joanne? What you're,
Kind of,
like, there's
yeah.
a step where we have to take action to do
So
that.
essentially for example, if you want, we know that 90, it's 94.9 with the QC buff, okay? Just the general fund is like 93.3, something like that, right? I don't have that number in front of me. That's the spending limit right now. If you want to go to 33,509, you can. And each cent is basically $340,000. So you could say, we agree with the general fund because you know, that is what it is where it is. We agree with the QC Puff. We also know that we want some sinking fund dollars in there for future use because of infrastructure, facilities, those types of things. Then you would say, we want an additional as an example, an additional 3 cents for that to utilize more of your taxing authority, which is over and above your spending limit, which means you're going to go to the extra meeting, and that's going to be the explanation. Why did you do that? Well, because we know that we have 13 buildings, we need to take care of 13 buildings, and by doing that, we are going to need these funds sometime in the future because we know we have roofs, we know we have flooring, we know we have HVAC.
And right now, we're barely making salary payroll.
We, based on the property tax authority from 24, 25 to where you're at on your property tax asking, that is essentially covering salary and benefits.
So
The
without,
increase,
the increase. Right, and so without the extra authority, that's all we're gonna be able to cover is.
If I came to you and the property tax asking was 32.5, you would still be within your property tax authority this year, but you're gonna be over your spending limit. And you would still need to go to the additional meeting with the explanation as to, well, this is where our budget is right now for all of our programs. The additional authority is just, again,
Well, so I guess I'm kind of asking too, if we don't approve this, then even in the next year, we could see ourselves in a situation where we're not able to meet all of our obligations.
if you pass this, if you look over here, 35,909,859, right? If you pass this, that's the number that the state's going to utilize to give you more authority if you need it the next year.
Okay.
You may not need it, may not, but it's going to give you, if you don't utilize that, then they're going back, looking at the 33,509. And then they will build off of that. So
But
it
if
gives you an
we're-
option to build more, so you're not limiting yourself if there are limits out there.
If we're talking headroom for like things in the immediate future, we are 2.2 million with this proposed tax ask under our total tax authority. So there is 2.2 million with, even if we don't take action on this, that is accessible to us already as taxing authority. That if in the following year you would need to increase, even if they didn't give us anything increased upon that, that taxing authority would remain the same. So we're not maxing out with the current proposed budget. We're not maxing out what our authority is.
Yeah.
Last year we were. Last year we went slightly above what the taxing authority was.
And yeah, and for clarity is even if your taxing authority comes in, like next year, if you went to 35.9, passed your resolution, it comes in at 35.9, your spending authority might only be 32 or 31.5, whatever that is. So you're still within that spending limit or real growth, that the state is currently utilizing. But you don't have the authority. You won't have the authority to go up and above that, and you're still only to the $1.05. I mean that's the cap. So you're up against that cap anyway. So you may have the authority to go to $1.10. You still can't go to $1.10. So.
The spending authority you can surpass if you have the public meeting. Is that right? The pink card? Is that what that's tied to? If you
Yeah.
go above.
Above
So there
your-
is a way for the board to choose to go to above the spending authority, but you have
Yeah,
to
just-
have, which I don't think anybody, I went to one of those and I don't think any of us wants to do that experience. So I don't think anyone's arguing for that, but there is a way. I think it's just important to know like long-term impacts that when that taxing authority grows and grows and grows, knowing what other accountability measures are in place, that somebody doesn't just come in and increase taxes $10 million in a year.
And you also
Authorities
don't
here.
have any idea what the legislature might do with this. This
Right.
is what, third year?
Yes.
Third year for this. And depending on what the commission that I talked about earlier does, a lot of things could be mute.
True.
But if we do this, and this continues, then it will put us on more solid ground for the future. But I'm not going to look at what they might do. I'm looking at the consequences that could happen if we don't do this. That's my biggest concern.
Did you have anything
We
more
kind of
on
moved into our
budget,
next
Dr.
item.
McDonald, before we officially move to the
I
next
would
action
say we've
item?
really been into it, haven't we?
So again, how many people like taxes?
No.
Okay. Is there anything that
But
you
they're
have, I wrote down a few things to follow up with, some of your questions, and your question on the cash reserve. Anything else that I can provide for you as board members?
No, thank you. I'm glad we're doing it first year together, so it's your things. That's great.
Yeah, Dr. McDonald, I do want to really reiterate, like, I really appreciate this information that you put together as far as budget, because even though we may not all agree on what next steps are, I truly feel like this is probably the most honest and robust conversation we've had about some of these things, and this is probably the best understanding that I've had of all of the numbers that we're looking at. And so I actually really appreciate that, so thank you for doing that.
Good questions.
Okay, well, we will officially, if there's no further questions about budget related, any of this document here, we will officially move on to our action item this evening. And so I suppose we'll open this up. I would entertain a motion if somebody would like to make the motion on the table to take action to adopt the resolution. We'll get a second on that. We'll open that back up for discussion. We will vote on it, and then I believe we only read the resolution if it passes. Is that correct?
Yep.
So that'll kind of be our order of events here. So I'll open that up. I would entertain a motion at this time to adopt a resolution increasing the school district's base growth percentage used to determine the school district's property tax request authority by up to 5%. Do I have a motion?
I move to take all necessary action to adopt a resolution increasing the school district's base.
Do I have a second? Okay. If I don't have a second, that motion
Guys.
dies.
Gonna make a motion to table this until our next meeting.
A second?
Can we table without having a motion on the table previously?
Bring back. You should be able to.
The other motion did not
Yeah,
get a
it
second,
fails.
so
Okay,
it
so we're-
You
died.
should be able to
Okay.
table it.
Once that motion didn't get a second, it's no longer valid.
Okay, so I have a first to table this, or a motion to table
A
this,
second.
I have a second. Is there, we'll go ahead and call that to vote, to table.
Justin Thompson,
Aye.
Joanne Lynn Green,
Aye.
Emily Garrett, Skip Alford, Angela Blazen.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, yeah, we didn't vote.
You have to wait for our answer.
So I thought.
Like, wait, what?
Just like she's reading right off the list.
I want out of here. Next thing's adjournment.
I'm sorry, I thought she was like abstaining. I thought she was intentionally abstaining. That was me.
No, I was thinking.
Okay, sorry.
I will vote aye to table. Okay, so we have all ayes, just to clarify. All right,
Yes.
so motion passes to table this item, so we will bring this back on the next meeting. We can have no further discussion on it tonight. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I think you have 5 ayes.